Hello there, and welcome back to Little Bear Games. I'm Josh.
I'm Andy.
And today we've got a very exciting episode for you, very topical as it's the start of the summer holidays here in the UK. And we're going to be looking at what I'd refer to as some hand luggage games, Andy.
Okay.
So these are smaller box games that you would be able to fit into a backpack or a kind of large handbag or something
Maybe
like
even
that.
a pocket.
Maybe even a pocket in some cases, for you to kind of take on flights on your various adventures abroad if you're lucky enough to go this summer. Yeah, so hopefully you'd manage to fit at least one of these games into a bag on the flight.
You could fit all three of mine into a small bag like that.
Nice,
Yeah.
but in which case you could definitely get them in the boot of a car.
Yes.
Or take
yes.
or take them on a bus with you. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to be looking at these small games, and the kind of light criteria I sort of passed across to Andy when we were coming up with our lists for this was they kind of needed to be games that were small but not overly simplistic. Like a lot of them are fairly straightforward, but they've got a degree of depth to them.
Yeah.
So, Andy, do you want to kick us off?
Why not? And as my first choice, it was actually taken. It was purchased en route to a staycation. We were heading up to North Wales, and it was a week stay in a lovely cottage provided to us by a charity called Two Wish. The reason Two Wish were involved with us is due to the passing of our indie bear. And one of their things that they do for a small amount of money, you can go and stay up in a cottage and have a break. So we decided to do that as a family. So my mum and dad came with us, and then Jazz and Josh joined us for part of that journey. Of course, as we were going up to North Wales, we were going to pass some of our favourite gaming shops, one being Firestorm. So I stopped in at Firestorm.
To Jodie and Jazz's dismay, you and I
100%.
scurrying in there.
100%.
What are those guys in Star... Oh, is it Jawas? In Star Wars, those guys who like just scavenge stuff? They just scurry around?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was like... We were just sort of running off in there like...
What could we trade up for? Yeah. Here, take my wife. You give me some games.
Turned into Borat there.
Yeah, well, I did a little bit. Yeah, sorry. So I spotted the number, which was a small, what we're calling hand luggage game.
Yeah,
certainly fit in the boot of the car. And called the number, which is if you haven't guessed from the title, is a number strategy game. We only played it, to be fair, at the cottage. We haven't played it again since, but it is a really fun game. I think we all enjoyed the premise of it being that you need to come up with a 3-digit number that is unique. So, for instance, if I chose 777, Josh chose
249.
Jazz chose 123.
Jodie chooses 004.
Yeah, you kind of want them unique, but not only in that it needs to be a unique number each. So that the first digit, second digit, and third digit need to be unique from other people's. And if they're not, I think you start with the highest number and work down.
Yeah.
And so if I chose 777, I don't want any sevens lining up with anyone else's.
No.
And as long as it doesn't, I score. If they do, then my card gets wiped out.
Yeah, so it's got kind of push your luck elements, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like you want 999.
Because you're going to score high.
Yeah, because that's the amount of points you'll get. But the thing is, if you and I both put nines, we wiped out.
We both get wiped out.
It's similar to kind of Just One that we referenced in a previous podcast.
Yes.
Where if you've got the same word, they get crossed out. In this, it's kind of like the same number gets crossed out.
Exactly. You have a scorecard in front of you, 0 through to 9. And then once you've scored a number, you cross that number off and you can't then use that number again. So a tactic for that would be if you used 999, you would only cross the one number off. You would have, of course, score highly there, but chances are someone else is going to have put a 9 somewhere in their number sequence.
Yeah, and each round has a different score multiplier that gets increasingly higher. So, okay, maybe I score 9 points in round 1, but
your multiplier
is times
small.
By 1.
As opposed
so I get 9 points. Whereas I can't remember at the end of the game, but it's like 10 points or something, isn't it?
You get a higher multiplier if you use it later.
And then the risk of other people putting 9 is much higher because everyone wants to get 90 points.
Exactly. So you want to choose when to bring that number into play. and choose the right multiplier that you think other people aren't going to necessarily use when you do.
And you can also track what everyone else has got left, can't you? So it's like,
'cause your
so
board is open.
Jodie's not got a 7 anymore, so there's a better chance of me being able to score a 7 this round.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just a fun, easy game that we could play. I like games that are simple to learn. This was certainly simple to learn, and then just simple to play, but enough strategy that made the game interesting to play.
It was very fun and it was very addictive.
Yeah.
We played that like 3 games in a row, didn't we? We
The
were like, let's have
replayability
another
is
one.
like, I'll go again. Certainly as you started to learn strategy, and that whole multiplier thing really came into play. People think you picked up on how important that is and when choosing the number and things. The lowest number always scores, though. Is that right? I remember. Yeah, because it doesn't knock anyone else out below it. So you're trying to put in the highest number possible while being the lowest if you definitely want to score. So there's lots of interesting strategies with it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting game because it's kind of a combination of mechanisms, isn't it? You've got kind of push your luck, you've got not roll them right, but you've got that ticking stuff off kind of element and not being able to use it again. Yeah, I suppose to a certain degree, kind of bluffing as well. Like, who's going to put a 9 here?
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
You could sort of openly. I guess one thing we didn't do that much of, but we could have, is like, well, I'm going to put a 9 here, so no one else put a 9, and try and call your bluff that way.
Yeah.
So it opens up a lot more for different strategies, and that's why I found it quite interesting. It's a shame we haven't played it much again since, but. Certainly since doing the podcasting, we're like hitting the shelf of shame and doing stuff like that, so that games that we have played more frequently have taken a bit of a back burner and may end up on the shelf of shame if we're not too careful. But it's certainly one that I will, because of its size, if I'm going around to your house or if we're going away, it's one I'll easily throw in the bag for the fact that it's fun to play, it's a good size. It's not quite pocketable, unless you have very large pockets.
Coat pocket,
maybe. Yeah, coat pocket. So yeah, it's one that I definitely recommend picking up if you like a fun-sized strategy game with the numbers, etc.
I would add to that I didn't think I would enjoy the number.
No, I got that feeling actually when I think I sort of introduced you to it.
Yeah,
I saw the grimace of like, oh, what's this?
Doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah.
The box to me is not particularly attractive.
No.
And the kind of the number, like I'm not a maths guy.
No.
I'm a English and history and fantasy and that sort of stuff. So it sounded really like the opposite end of the spectrum of what I'm into. But I loved it, and I think it's something I could see families, friends, etc. playing like camping or on holiday or like in the evening, sort of sat outside and play several rounds of it. Almost like, loads of people do that, like Uno and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's one of those sort of games. It's thinky, but it's not too much, and you can just keep playing it quite easily.
It's one of those that I don't want to make too much of a big deal out of this, but as a metric for sort of how well a game plays, my mum doesn't do well with board games in general, and that's partly. So for those that don't know, just a little bit of a sort of history on my mother. My mum's Italian. She came here when she was 7 years old, and that was back in the 70s. Dumped into a school, forgotten about. So learning English wasn't a high priority for. When I say learning English, she speaks English perfectly fine, but sort of certainly reading and writing English. The education system for people that came over here when they were younger wasn't great. My point is, mum's not great when it comes to board games, especially if it involves sort of reading and writing and things like that. And so a metric for this is whether my mum can play a board game. And this is one of those ones that my mum can pick up easily and join in with us. It's why it's difficult to have a family night, because we can't play complicated strategy games around the table because mum doesn't find those easy to play. One of the wisest, strongest people I know, by the way, but there are people that are somewhat illiterate in this country, and just sort of take that as personal experience. This is one that my mum can play. So if you do have people in your life that are somewhat illiterate, this is actually quite a fun game for them to play. So it's one that we can get out as a family and play. So yeah.
So Twilight Imperium next.
Yes. Yeah. Bless my mother. I mean, she'll fall asleep just to the theme of Twilight Imperium. To be fair, let alone the strategy. Yeah, no, my mum likes more true lifey themes. So if we were playing some kind of true life drama, a crime type thing, I think she'd be all over it. But not space councils and warships, and plus that doesn't fit in your pocket or your hand luggage. Yeah, so that was my first game, the fun game to play.
Awesome. My first game is Arboretum, and Arboretum's a lovely little game. It's definitely a handbag sort of game. You wouldn't get in your pocket necessarily, but it's wonderful. It's a really pretty game. The box is lovely to look at, and essentially it's just about building an arboretum. So just planting loads of trees, essentially, and having the prettiest. And the way the game works is essentially there's different suits of trees. So you've got kind of oak, maple, cherry, willow, all these sorts of stuff. And the cards go from 0 to 8. Misspoke that. 1 to 8. And each player has 7 cards in their hand at the start of the game. And on your turn, you draw 2 cards. And that can either be from the top of the deck in the middle, or it can be from any player's discard pile, whatever's topmost face up on that.
Nice.
It can even be from your own discard pile. And then you play a card to your Arboretum, which is just a big kind of tableau. So you do need a little bit of space in front of you to play it, because it will grow as you play cards to your Arboretum. And then at the end of your turn, you discard a card. So it's a really intriguing game. It's one of these games that's very simple to play, but the scoring's quite complicated at the end. So it's all based around pathways in your Arboretum. And a pathway is a series of fognally adjacent cards in ascending order. And that, bit like we said in the previous one on Spicy, it doesn't have to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
It could be 1, 4, 7.
As long as it's ascending.
Yeah, and they don't have to be of the same type of tree. They can be totally kind of random different trees. And that I found really confusing to start with. But then now that I've picked it up more and played it more, I understand. And it's really nice because essentially you could have like an oak, a willow, a cherry tree in a row.
Are you just planting oak trees constantly? You're allowed to plant oak?
I like to try to.
Yeah.
Keep it thematic. But you then also get extra points if they are the same species of tree.
Okay.
So you get points for just having them adjacent and ascending. You get extra points for having them being adjacent, ascending, in the same species. You get extra points for having them start with a 1 or end with an 8.
Yeah.
So there's all these kind of extra elements you're thinking about when you're playing your trees. But then we get into a slightly nasty element of it, which is, number 1, taking cards from people's discard piles. Okay. So they discard something, you're like, oh, I really need that, so you grab it. Yeah. That also plays on your mind when you're playing the game. Like, Andy's got a load of ash trees in a row.
Yeah.
I don't particularly want to discard that, even though it's useless to me.
Need to chop them down from my pizza oven.
Exactly. Because then Andy can score it.
Yes.
But then we get to this extra layer of nastiness, which is at the end of the game when the deck runs out. And I think actually it's like when the deck runs out twice is supposed to be when the game finishes, but I don't think I've ever played it like that. You earn the right to score for a species of tree. So the person who gains the right to score for a species of tree is the player with the highest number of a tree in their hand. So you could have, let's stick with your example. I could have my Arboretum full of oak trees, but then you've got the highest scoring oak tree in your hand at the end and don't have any on your board, in your tableau, and I don't score anything, and nor do you. But you've stopped me from scoring
all yours.
And there is a little bit of a weird mechanic with that as well, where if one player has the ace in their hand of a species of tree and the other has a 1, then the 8 becomes 0. And the player with 1 gets to score for the trees.
Okay, interesting.
So there's some weird scoring mechanics, and there's some nasty, frustrating things you can do where you can deny people the right to score for the trees they've been building around.
The scoring's quite complicated.
Yeah, but what it also does is it does mean you have to be versatile, and you do have to build like these nice prissy kind of selections of trees, and it just looks pretty as it builds up in front of you. It's fairly simple. The scoring's the hardest part, but there is like a score sheet in the box, and it kind of walks you through it and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I love it. I think Arboretum's a lovely game, and it's one I like to play, when I can.
Yeah.
But I think the last time I played it was when me, Jazz, and Jodie were at Centre Parks, kind of pre-indie, like the first time.
Oh, really? I was going to say, because I don't have any recollection of this game or playing it, but then it could be because, that would have been 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah. Was that pre-COVID?
Yeah, definitely pre-COVID.
So that would have been our first trip to Centre Parks, right?
Yeah. And you and I were getting hammered on Star of Ramen.
Okay, yes.
It was lovely hot, and we were sat in the park. And I remember, because the cricket was on in that sports bar, and there was a big screen behind you and Jodie.
Yeah.
And I was kind of playing, and also I was watching Joss Butler absolutely dismantle Pakistan, and it was great.
Nice.
It's good times, good memories associated with Arboretum.
I'm trying to remember the board, but I don't. You're gonna have to show me it afterwards.
Well, I keep slipping into using this phrase board. It's not really a board. It's a card game, but then you're building out like a tableau.
Okay.
So it gets bigger, and you get kind of you can lay them out however you want, as long as they're all functionally adjacent.
So this is ringing more bells.
So it kind of like builds outwards. It's a funny one because I've played it with you guys before. I may have played it with like Laura and Albie before. I've played it 2-player with Jazz, and I don't think she's as keen on it as I am. Probably due to the quite kind of convoluted scoring at the end.
I was going to say, what puts Jazz off? Because that sounds like a game that would be right up Jazz's street.
Yeah, she loves the art and the theme. And
just the scoring at the end.
Yeah.
It's funny how scoring, if you make scoring of a game quite complicated, it can be a little bit off-putting.
Yeah, and I think the 2-player in that game, it's a bit hard as well, because you can just absolutely mess someone up by, like, if they've got loads of willow trees and you've got a 6 at the end, and there's all the other ones are out on the table, then you deny them the right to score loads of points. So I think you have to be in the right mindset to play it. But I just really like it. It's a small game with loads of depth, and it's good fun.
I'm sure the fact that I don't remember it has no reflection on the game whatsoever. Just that it was some time ago. I'll move on to my number 2, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So my number 2 is one that I was introduced to at the spring fair at the NEC. So we were, I don't want to say dragged along. It's the wrong thing to say. When we were trying to keep ourselves busy after Indy's passing, I started talking about starting some kind of business or whatever, and around little bear games, that kind of thing. And that's ultimately spawned into this podcast, which is wonderful. But Sen dragged us to the spring fair at the NEC, which is where her dad, who runs a sweet shop and a few other businesses, went along to look for ideas. And we thought we'd go along and we could look at the board game providers, because Big Potato Games were there and a few other people. And
Big Potato Games, Andy's mentioned you like 100 times so far. Please sponsor us.
That would be nice. Big Potato Games, they're a friendly bunch. We went and met them, and they introduced us to a couple of their games. One that we really took to, which was called Cluster. And Cluster is a small game with in fact, if you took the box out and just took the bag, which is all you need, which is basically a bag of magnets and some string, it can definitely go in your pocket. Definitely the car boot. It's a fun little game that is very addictive. You end up playing multiple rounds of. You don't need to explain the rules, because you literally will just put the string on the table, hand out the magnets. You have it.
Correction. You can play it solo.
Can you play it solo?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, we're 1-1 in terms of corrections now. Should we keep a tally? That's cool. Okay, I didn't know you could play it solo. I guess I'm trying to work out in my head. Let's not worry about it for now. I was going to say I'm trying to work out in my head how you'd play it solo. I just guess you try and place all the magnets without it. So yeah, I'm guessing the solo is you said that you can do it solo is just like, trying to get rid of all your magnets. Personal challenge.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, so you split up the magnets that you have. I think they're 20 odd. We normally end up with 6 each, 6, 12, 18, 24.
I think 2-player we had 8 each.
Did we?
From what I remember, yeah.
So you have a number of magnets in your hand, and the idea is just the first person to get rid of all their magnets. So you have a loop of string, and the rule with the string is it must be flat on the table, but you can use a finger to pull the string into various shapes or move stuff out of the way. And you're ultimately just placing these small magnets on the table, and as long as you can place a magnet down without it clustering, so the magnets being attracted to each other and then attaching to each other, this is the end of your go. So you're just each placing down a magnet in turn. The interesting way to play it, in my opinion, is to put the magnets in interesting positions rather than just lay them on their side. That tends to make the game fairly easy. If you actually put them on their side, on their vertically, they tend to get attracted to magnets a little bit more interestingly. They'll spin as you place stuff down, they'll move, and it makes it a little bit more edgy. I was about to say the only problem I have with the game really is majority of the time, the person that goes first will end up winning the game. I think there's an advantage. It might only be small, but there's an advantage to going first. That's, of course, unless you cluster. And then once you cluster, again, another problem with the game is if you cluster.
I think we have, though.
Do you?
That's definitely happened at least a couple of times. Where
it depends how big the clustering is, right? Because if you get like a large cluster, you're freeing up a massive space on the table that people can just go in and place magnets. And I'm probably making it sound a lot easier than the game actually is. It does get quite difficult as more magnets are being placed.
Yeah, I mean, it's excellent cluster.
Yes.
It's excellent. I loved it. The first time you introduced that to me down at All Stars, we were playing it together. Yeah. And I was like, what is this? And then it's so simple, but so brilliant. Yeah. It's just putting magnets down in a loop of string. And then, but there's so much to it. There's so many like kind of tense moments where it's like in a movie where someone's like trying to defuse a bomb and you're kind of shaking and you're trying to gently place this magnet in amongst all of the other magnets.
That's a good way of putting it.
And then there was points where like we were having a laugh because I was getting all like mind gamey and I was just putting them down really quickly without even doing it. And sometimes I'd cluster, but when it didn't, it was like, that's awesome.
It's just like just no thought given to it where you're just putting it down.
And they twitch, don't they?
Yes.
When you put them down, the like sort of nearby magnets start twitching and it gets you all edgy. And you started playing around that strategy of like holding a magnet out and then trying to push others away. And stuff. With them.
I think that happened by complete accident. Again, dentures. You learn things as you play the game. It's like you've got a handful of magnets that you can easily hold in one hand and kind of pull one off to sort of put down on the table. But then you don't realize that actually you're holding a very large force in your hand, and then you're taking that whole cluster of magnets that you have in your hand near the other magnets, and they're all starting to twitch, and you're just I should take one off and literally just place one magnet by itself. Really fun game that you can play with technically anyone over the age of 14. Because they're magnets, they think people under the age of 14. I was having an interesting conversation with them. They're covering their butts, I guess. Because swallowing a magnet obviously is not a good thing to do. And they're worried that under 14-year-olds might put these things in their mouths, which is why they've created Cluster Duo, which is another version of the game where the magnets are ever so they're larger, they're much larger, and those are for like 7 or 8 plus. So if you have younger children, this probably isn't a game that's best taken on holiday with you. If you have children that are above 7 or 8, Cluster Duo, similar game, just the pieces are actually it'll be slightly different because they're little pebble, they're tiny pebble size games in Cluster. Cluster Duo, they're probably about an inch-ish long, and will spin more freely, I think, if you put them down. So it'll make the game certainly different. But I'd recommend either because I imagine they'll both play very, very similar. So yeah, Cluster, highly recommended. Big Potato Game, please sponsor us.
Stealing my catchphrase.
Yeah, sorry, dude. Yeah, that's your line.
My next game is Fantasy Realms. Now, this is a game I've mentioned once before on the podcast, right towards the very start, when we were doing games we changed our perspective on. And I mentioned a game on that called Red Rising, the one I played with Albie, and we played in Birmingham, and you can remember and stuff. And essentially, all Fantasy Realms is a hand management game.
Okay.
It's funny because I bashed Ticket to Ride very early on.
You did.
Into the podcast for just play, like, put a card down, pick one up, etc. That is literally all Fantasy Realms is.
Okay.
You have a hand of cards, and then you're putting cards down, picking cards up, and that's it. However, it is awesome. I love the theme because it's all fantasy, and you've got different suits of cards. So you have kind of elements, or wizards, or witches, or kings, or knights, or dragons, or what have you. And basically, you have 7 cards in hand, and on your turn, you can pick up a card from the middle, or you can pick one up from the top of the deck, and then you discard one. And essentially, what kind of happens is the game ends when there's 10 cards left in the middle. So you have to bear in mind, like, other players are picking up the cards that you've discarded, bit like Arboretum. So you could hand someone victory by discarding the wrong thing at the wrong time. But the way the cards work is it's all about score multipliers in your hands. So, and they all kind of synergize or cancel each other out. And it's about crafting the best hand possible for the end of the game. Because you just score for whatever's in your hand. Each card has a basic score value, and this can be 1 point all the way up to 100 points or higher potentially. And they have different effects. So it could be like you've got a Inferno as like an element, and it's worth 40 points on its own, this one card. But if you have any of the like water cards in your hand, then it's blanked, which means it counts as 0. It's just
this is ringing a bell now. Yeah, I remember
card.
playing this.
Yeah, well, you might have a wizard who is worth 15 points on their own, but if you get a magic wand in your hand, they're suddenly worth 30 points.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that kind of stuff. It's just about crafting the hands, trying to pick a strategy. You may have to adapt your strategy on the fly depending on what you draw from the deck and what's in the middle. And it's really hard because sometimes you don't want to actually discard anything or pick anything up, but you have to.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting. It's just loads of hard decisions, trying to work out a score in your hand. And it's a very interesting game because it came out originally a few years ago, just as kind of a base set. And then a year or two ago, they released a deluxe edition, which is the one I've got. And it's lovely. It comes with its own sleeves, which is really nice. All the cards are sleeved in Fantasy Realm sleeves. It also comes with a couple of extra suits. So you've got like outsiders who do loads of weird stuff. You get things that could potentially earn like 99 points or lose you 99 points.
Okay.
You've got some real kind of high stakes cards in there. And you've also got a deck of artifacts, which I don't think I've played with yet, but they do all kinds of weird things as well for the players and give you kind of variable powers and stuff to focus on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so cool, dude. It's really nice and simple. The box says freeze 5 players, but it's a bit silly actually because they have legitimately shot themselves in the foot there, because I bought that and it was like a couple of Christmases ago when I was down in Devon at that really nice shop in Credison called Meeple Corner.
Yes.
Which very unfortunately is closed now. It was run by this lovely chap. I never actually caught his name. It was really, really nice guy. So I was really sorry to see that closed. But I bought it and I took it home and I was like, Dad won't like this because it's a straight up card game. And as I've established, he's not a big lover of it. I was like, Mum will play it with me though. She'll enjoy it. And then I looked at the box and I was like, it's 3 to 5. That's a shame. But then at the back of the rulebook, there's a 2-player variant.
Oh, amazing.
And it's really good, the 2-player one. It's really, really good.
It can be hit or miss when they do things like that.
Yeah, but it's what frustrated me is why have WizKids done that?
Yes.
Why isn't it? It should just say 2 to 5 on the box because it plays 2 to 5 players.
I could be completely wrong here, but maybe originally it was a three-player game, and then they subsequently made it a 2-player variant and just changed the manual rather than having to change the box because of costings, maybe.
But the box is different. Because it's bigger, because it makes room for sleeves and the extra cards.
Okay.
So I guess that was just an oversight.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
Probably lost sales
as a result of
that.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
Yeah,
and
I wonder why that is.
And the 2-player variant works really well. I say that, and off the top of my head, it's been quite a while since I played it, so I can't fully remember. But it's something like in a 3 to 5 player game, you have cards out in the middle to start with, and in the 2 player you don't.
Okay.
Or vice versa. It's one of those. And
Okay.
maybe you don't in the 2 player. But essentially that's the only difference. And it works very, very well. I think you don't in the 2 player, and then it's when each player has like 7 cards in their hand or something like that, the game ends. No, there we go. That's the difference. 2 player game, you don't have any cards in your hand to start with.
Right.
And then you're just picking stuff up. And then it's when the players get 7. So there's a bit more of a crafty element to it. You're less kind of focused on a particular strategy than when you start in a 3 to 5 player game.
Okay.
But yeah, it's awesome. The artwork's great. I love the theme. It's really fun.
Did Mum enjoy it?
Yeah, Mum really likes it. It's a very straightforward game because it is just picking stuff up. And then the cards, the only real kind of keyword to look out for is kind of like blanks, where it's like, if something's blanked, it's worth nothing. It's just a muted card. But then all the other cards are really self-explanatory. Like, you might have a horse kind of card, and they might have different names or whatever, but it'll be like horse card, worth 10 points. If paired with a knight, worth 15.
Nice.
Then you'll have a knight, and it's worth 15 points. If paired with a horse, worth 20. So it's nice and simple to kind of work out.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like woodlands, like locations. So woodlands are worth X many points, and if they aren't paired with elves, they're worth nothing. If they are paired with elves, they're worth 40 and all this sort of stuff.
Nice.
So it's just making combos in your hand.
I remember this game.
Yeah,
it was
and
good fun.
I love the art, love the theme, and it's nice and small. It will go in a backpack nice and easily. And yeah, I could definitely play it for hours. It's up there. It's one of my favourite games, actually.
We should play it more
and
often.
I feel bad for Ticket to Ride for, I love Fantasy Realms for what that is.
But it's I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. Although I love Ticket to Ride, I get what you say about Ticket to Ride. Whereas this, yes, you are just picking up cards, and it is a little bit of, but there is something quite nice about being able to match your woodlands with your elves and your knights to your horses, and there's just something quite fun about that.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well is it's every time I have to pick up a card in Fantasy Realms, I pick up the card, and even if it's not what I need, I'm still like, oh, but where's that fit in?
Yes.
Can I do something with that?
Yeah.
Does it change what I'm looking for?
Yes.
I've won games of Fantasy Realms by starting like, oh, I'm going to like focus pretty much exclusively on dragons.
Yeah.
Abandoning that midway through and having a hand that's like a scattering of like tornadoes, pirate ships, and ogres.
Yeah.
And then winning, like, you don't have to kind of stick to something.
It's
Whereas
interesting.
Ticket to Ride, it's that, like,
Yes.
I need this one thing exclusively.
Yeah, to be able
And
to
I
build
just
this
have to
part of the
wait
chain.
until I get it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's giving me rummy vibes in terms of just card games. So just like that idea that you're, 3 or 1 for the other or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going on one path, you're trying to get all 2s or whatever, and then you're going on a different path because of what's come up in your hand,
Yeah, it is.
That's quite nice. Yeah. It's quite cool.
Yeah, so that's Fantasy Realms. What's your next game, Andy?
So my third and final game, it's going to be quite a short one, and this is a shout out to Alley Cat Games, who we'll talk about in the not too distant future, and how they've helped us out with a project that we're working on, IndieFest. Please sponsor us, Alley Cat Games. This certainly is a suitcase hand luggage / pocket game. It's called Kitten. It's in a tin. It's very small. It's very cool. It's very cute. It's a very quick game to play that you can play with people of all ages. You have a lot of little wooden. I'm trying to think of.
Meeple?
Yeah, no, it is Meeple. I was trying to think of a kitten pun, Meeple, but I'm not going to now.
Meowple?
Meowple. Nice.
There we go.
Thanks, Josh.
No worries.
You got lots of Meowples in there. Different colours, shapes, etc., and a deck of cards. And the idea is you turn over a card and you're all racing each other to collect those cats and stack them the way that they're stacked on the cards. You win the card. Most cards at the end of the game wins, basically. But it's just very cute. It's very portable. It's the sort of thing that you could easily play on a train, on a plane if there's no turbulence. Otherwise, you've got meowples.
Well, it's all right. I always land on their feet.
Hey, good point. And they've got 9 lives, so they could do it at least 9 times, right? So, it's just one of those games that you can just easily carry and play very quickly. It'll keep kids entertained for at least 10, 15 minutes, I think. It's got a fair bit of replayability. It's not a game that you're going to go to time and time again and say, I really want to play that. But for the right situation, it fits in your hand luggage. And it can be, like I say, played anywhere. I'll mention briefly, we have talked about Indie Fest. It's a project, a charity project that we're running to try and raise some money for our chosen charities at the moment. And we reached out to Alley Cat Games, and they gave us a couple of copies of Kitten, along with Castronauts, that we will use as part of raffle prizes and things like that to help raise money for charity. So a massive shout out to Alley Cat Games for helping us out with that. Has genuinely no reflection as to why I've introduced this. We're not sponsored by them. We didn't receive any money from them or anything like that. They just, I reached out to them to see if they could help us raise some money for charity, and they said that they will get on board with that as an idea. So it just happens that this project as a podcast kind of coincides with Indie Fest, because the whole element is for us to raise money for charity ultimately, and try and ease our experience. So Kitten, my final game.
Nice. So a couple of dexterity games on your list this week.
Yeah, which is something I don't have a lot of in my games library, but we do have a game that we will be giving out as part of a prize / raffle at Indie Fest as well, called Cards versus Gravity, which is another actually big potato game. Please sponsor us. I'm taking your tagline. Cards versus Gravity is a great dexterity game that I've played and was introduced to at the Spring Fair as well, actually. So dexterity is slowly building in my collection, but not one that I would normally turn to. But they have been really, really fun. So,
my last game is possibly my favourite game ever.
Oh,
joint first, maybe.
Okay.
Kind of definitely in that.
Oh,
kind of
you've got a favourite. What about your other children?
So this is the Grandmaster, Reiner Knizia.
Yes, of course.
And it's a Basel line.
Nice.
So,
I've not played this.
Have you not?
No, I don't think so. I think this is...
we might need to get a game of this in after we finish. So Basel line is... how do I put this? It would fit in a backpack or a handbag, definitely boot the car, etc.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be able to play it on like a plane or a train. You'd be playing it sort of around the table in the evening or what have you. And it's amazing. And it doesn't... How do I... Right, let me break this down for you, Andy. It's a GMT game.
Yeah.
It's Reiner Knizia.
Yeah.
It's about ancient history.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
How have we not played it, seeing as your favourite game?
So... It's a 2-player game, and you take on the role of either Alexander the Great or Darius of Persia, and you're playing out this kind of ancient war, this ancient battle. And what happens is it's pretty straightforward. There's 9 flags across the table. Flags are represented by these little red pawns. And you have a handful of cards, and the cards have different colours. They've got different suits, so they could be like slingers or elephants or cavalry or spearmen or what have you. And you play a soldier, a card to each flag. Well, a flag, sorry, on your turn. You can also do other stuff. So you have to play a card to one of the flags, but then you can either draw cards, I believe off the top of my head, it's 2 cards from the main deck, or you can draw 1 card from the tactics deck, which is a separate one. And the main deck is just more troops. So again, could be a yellow 10 elephant. It could be a red hoplite 4, that kind of thing. And the tactics do horrible, nasty, tricky things that I'll get into in a minute. Now, the object of the game is to either win 5 flags or to win 3 adjacent flags.
Okay.
Now, the way you win is it kind of works like a trick. So a flag is scored once there is 3 cards from each side on it. And then it works like a trick. So it's kind of done on like, off the top of my head. So what you ideally want is kind of consecutive value and different colours. Same colour, consecutive value. So like red, 4, 5, 6. And if your opponent plays red and consecutive, it's just whoever's the highest. So if your opponent played 7, 8, 9, they'd win it. But it's just trumps, essentially. So like consecutive value, same color, beats consecutive numbers, different color, that sort of thing. And same numbers beats same color beats random assortment of cards. If it's random assortment of cards, then the highest cards win. So a bit pokery in that sense. So it's almost like different hands resolving on these different flags.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting then is I could have a flag filled out with 8, 9, 10 blue kind of thing, but you don't have to play anything to that.
Okay.
You can like think, well, I'm probably not going to win that, so I'm going to focus on some of these other ones.
Yeah.
Or you can play a tactic card, and tactic cards are horrible. They do some really nasty things. So it could be like, you reduce all your opponent's cards on a flag to 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, nice.
Or this flag doesn't score with 3 on each side.
Okay.
It scores with 4 on each side.
Okay.
So you give yourself a chance to mess up what your opponent's doing. There's 2 horrendous cards. There's one where it's like you can move something from either side of the board to a different flag, which can really mess stuff up.
Yeah.
Or the worst one, and I've never lost a game of this, and this is my secret, I always get this tactic card, and I can't pick it, I just get lucky most of the time and draw it. And it's called like Betrayer. And what it does is you can take one of your opponents and put it on your side somewhere and stuff. So there's some real nasty, like tricky stuff. And it's just great. It's insanely thinky. This isn't like a go and play it with like a 6-year-old on holiday kind of thing, unless they're very, very, very switched on.
Yeah.
It is really dense and really thinky, but at the same time, very simple. You're just playing a numbered card to a space on the board kind of thing or on the table. And then picking a card up. But you just have to think about everything. Oh, if I play this here, what can I put down next to it? Oh, which flags are next to each other?
Yeah.
What are they looking to score? All this sort of stuff. And it's just utterly superb. It's led to one of Jazz's most toxic moments ever in ball games, which was great. Yeah, and I'll out her for this because I was honest and did that. And maybe if we get them on Patreon, we'll get Jazz to give her a counter argument for this. But I was teaching Jazz how to play Basel Line.
Yeah.
This was the second time we'd ever played it, and I was reminding her of the rules. She was on her phone the entire time while I was going over rules.
Nice.
And she didn't listen to the part about the 3 adjacent flags. And I won 3 adjacent flags. And I was like, cool, that's it, that's game. I won. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, I got 3. I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that. I was like, why wouldn't I tell you that? That's just...
I will refrain from judgment until I hear the other side of the story, but,
Jazz decides that I didn't tell her.
Right, okay.
But 1, why wouldn't I tell her?
Yeah.
And 2, I did. She was just on her phone. But that was her like not packing away, going off upstairs, and like being angry.
I'm done. Like, you're not getting a kiss goodnight tonight. Yeah.
But beyond that, it is excellent. I love Basel Line. It's, as I say, it's thinky. The theme's good. The mechanics are good. I feel bad because I can't, off the top of my head, just rattle off. Like they've got different names as well for different hands, if you will. Yeah. So you've got like a wedge, a phalanx, all this kind of stuff.
Okay, cool.
But I can't remember for life of me what the hierarchy is.
It's a smash of games. Like Reiner games, I can see a couple of Reiner games in there from what you're describing. Yeah. I can also see some other games that we've played, and I'm trying to think of the one that's... What's the alien-based one where you do a similar thing where you're taking cards from each other and you're trying to build up... You got the little... Oh, I can't remember. You have the little bases and you play cards to them, and they're mostly aliens, and you're trying to put the most amount of number on a card.
Oh, Smash Up.
Is it Smash Up? Yeah, it's probably Smash Up. Yeah. So I'm seeing Smash Up in this. I'm literally seeing a Smash Up of games. Yeah, so it sounds... I can understand why it's a favourite game of yours, because a lot of those mechanics are really cool. So like Smash Up, Lost Cities, is the other one I was thinking of. Yeah,
is another one. Yeah, those sorts of games. But it's not just who has the highest number. Yeah, it's like poker hands. Yes, to each one, what beats what kind of thing. Yeah. And the cool thing is about Battle Line is quite an old game now, and it's got the ancient history theme, but there is also Battle Line Medieval, which was kind of like a reskin, and it's just medieval warfare.
Yeah,
there
boring,
may be mechanical stuff. And you bought me a game like a couple years after meeting you for Christmas, which was something Schlotten.
I bought you and Albie the same game, didn't I? Yes.
Glotten Schlossen or something. And it's basically Battle Line with turkeys.
Okay.
And so he's definitely cashed in, done quite a few different versions of it.
Yeah.
But the mechanic I just love. And I could go on about Battle Line for days, so I won't.
No. I think that wraps us up for this episode. I just want to take a second to say thank you again to those that are still here listening. Really appreciate that you're still listening to us at the end of the episode. If you've got any suggestions for the types of games that we can cover, please do let us know.
No, buy Battle Line.
By Battle Line. We'll set up an affiliate link add it to the description. We won't do that. But do go out and buy Battle Line if you can get hold of it.
If Reiner Knizia contacts us or sponsors us, that's it. I've completed podcasting.
Nice.
I'll go full Mel Gibson. I'm done. I've won at that point.
Okay.
Too big to fail.
Fair enough. Too big to fail. Nice. It's a goodbye from me. I've been Andy.
And goodbye from me. I've been Josh. Take care, everyone.
Before you leave, you must know you are beloved. Before you leave, remember I